the geometric middle. The mode, the most frequently occurring score. So let's take this, let's look at scoring average for a minute. This out here, let's invert this. This is great scores out here. So for a tour player, that's a 62. Every tour player walks out on the golf course and hopes that their 62 is coming today. The problem with that, no major league pitcher walks into a baseball diamond and goes, today's my no-hitter. The major league pitcher walks in and goes, I'm going to go out there and battle for every hitter. The golfer prepares for this day. Guess what? Very low probability occurrence. But it happens, and it will happen. They fear this one, the 80. Okay? Now, you shoot an 80 in a round, you're going to be making phone calls, right? Pretty quickly. Yeah, probably by the time you leave the course, you're on the phone. Well, you shoot 62.
3 hours.
Well, she's not on the 3-hour rule. She's rational. And I've got some irrationals. Okay. You shoot an 80, you're starting to panic. Okay? You're like, oh my God, what's going on in my game? Blah, 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 blah. The 62, there's a peacocking going on. Feeling pretty good. Shot 62 today. That was all easy. All right. What I'm interested in is this number right here. So if I'm going to bet on her or a player, I want to know what their average is. That's what you're doing, by the way, when you're doing your stats, isn't it? Okay. So let's just use a number and say 72 to make it easy. Now this is putting. You can do the same thing for putting. You can do the same thing for all shots. 72 is their average. What I'm most interested in, what I want you guys to be most interested in as coaches, is moving this line right. Not this number. Because I believe, like when Bobby Wise shot a 57, there was no question that it was going to it could happen eventually. Somebody's going to win the Powerball. Bobby hasn't shot a 57 again. He's had other great days. Okay? He's a great player. How many college tournaments has Bobby Wyatt won in his career? Anyone know? 0. Now, he's 3-time All-American, never won a tournament in college. Won the SUNY Hana, been on the Walker Cup, won all his matches, dominated his matches. Okay? U.S. amateur medalist at Cherry Hill, or Cherry Pines out in Colorado. Got to play, course record out there. But his average is so good. Very consistent. All right. So scoring average is 72. Easiest way to describe a standard deviation?
It's
the variance around the score?
The variance around the average.
Yeah. Okay. So our variance is what I'm most interested in. A player who struggles, their variance is wide. It's like going to a Shoney's. I don't know what quality I'm getting every time I go. Whereas the variance of going to a Fleming's or a Ruth's Chris is very tight. There are standards in place for Ruth's Chris. Very tight. Okay. 68% or about 68% of scores will fall within one standard deviation of that player's score. So let's assume this is a good tour player. This is Haley. Her standard deviation is 3 shots. So she's going to fall between a 69 and a 75, 68% of the time in competition. Now you take that, right? You make a lot of cuts that way. Okay? Pretty good. Oh, I got these backwards. Whoops, 69 over here, 75. Okay. 2 standard deviations is now 95% of the score. So now this is 78 and 66. Okay? Making sense? 3 standard deviations is 99%. All right, now why am I telling you all this? Players get out there and they go, oh, I'd like to shoot a low score, but I really want to avoid this score. They have to make a choice of which score they're going for. Are they playing to prevent a high score, or are they playing to lock into the low score and let it happen, to make this average better? If they're trying to prevent this score, they create more chaos on the board. There's a lot of things that can impact this. Emotions, not dealing with this, expectations, equipment change, swing change, a lot of things, and create chaos. But they changed their strategy out here on the 80. And it's very hard for somebody who's had a putting day where they've missed 4 putts inside 10 feet to say that was a low probability day. Go back to your foundations, which we'll talk about in a minute, and let's restart this. I want consistency and predictability. This model, by having them understand to improve their average, they all want this. Guess what? It's going to happen one day. Haley Millsap will shoot a 63 in an LPGA Tour event if she stays out there long enough. No question. One of my clients is Kevin Chappell. Shot 2 62s last year in competition. When he shot a 62 at the Barclays, He was 4 shots better than the field, the lowest other in the field, and he beat all but 5 groups in a 2-ball game on his own score. Some days, it happens. Boom, there it goes. His average has gotten dramatically better. Fair?
Yeah.
Okay. We've gotten rid of the left side of this board. It happens, it happens. The reason I tell this is I want you guys to coach them for consistency, and the big scores will come. The good scores will come, the big wins, but get them more consistent and better. And it's being consistent in your coaching and not chasing individual things, not letting them miss. If I had a bad putting day, guess what? It means a good day's coming. Go back to your foundations, which we'll talk about in a minute, and do those types of things. Long answer to that. Yeah, Scott.
Players come with a bunch of different personalities. You have more conservative personalities and more aggressive personalities. I tend to be one that's more of a conservative personality. What do you do
On the course or off? Serious question. Okay.
What do you do with a player who's maybe on the aggressive side can be too aggressive, or on the conservative side too conservative? Do you try and push them to the other end, or
So,
how do you handle that?
so one of the questions is, how aggressive are you going to be? Do you have the tools to be as aggressive as you want to be? Okay, so you take a Phil Mickelson, pretty aggressive dude. He knows he's going to make bogeys, but he's out there to hunt birdies. He wants to go for the lowest scores possible. He accepts that. He makes bogeys, he knows birdies are coming. But that's his personality. When he gets conservative is when he struggles. When he lost that US Open, the problem I had with people making the commentary afterwards, oh, just hit it in the fairway. That wasn't a strategy. First 3 rounds, he hit driver. He hit a bad shot. Then he got in a riptide very quickly, big pressure, made a bad decision. He lost statistics, is what he lost. He lost percentages. But when is too aggressive? Well, let's go back to this model. If we're trying to push too much and not trusting what we're trained to do, that's idiotic. And you have to trust. I mean, Shaquille O'Neal didn't shoot 3-pointers. They have to know their strengths. And you have to get them to train their strengths better and build their strategies around those strengths. They can be aggressive, but around their strengths. Who's the best driver, overall driver on tour? That's actually not just like a bunter, but
Probably Keegan Bradley.
Keegan Bradley. He can take aggressive lines, probably.
Yeah.
Okay, because he knows he's Adam Scott, when he's on, he can thread it through a needle. He can take aggressive lines. But they're also playing with house money too. They're willing to live their strategy. My whole rule for players is when you walk off the course, did you play your strategy or not? Or did you change it? If you change it, you're allowing your emotions to make the decision. Watch people at a craps table. When the table goes cold, they get nervous. But if all they have in their pocket is $100 and they've got $100 on the table, they're starting to count chips. And you know, there's the saying with gamblers is they're going to push you to your breaking point and go one step beyond it, and then they own you. That's what I want players to do. What are my strengths? I'm going to push it to that limit, and then I'll work to get my strengths better.
So for your conservative player, you take them more on their focusing in on their strengths and creating a strategy that
Yes.
allows them to be
Yes.
aggressive within that.
So if you have a Corey Pavin-esque player who knows he's not going to bomb it, Brian Gay is probably a good player like that. He knows his strengths, and he's certain tournaments he can do well in. But he's still so consistent. He's in a lot of tournament fields. But he's a conservative player. He has to be. So his wedge game is really good, and he putts well. So he's just got to be more conservative. He's not going to go for par 5s and 2s. Zach Johnson knows what he's got. He made his wedge game the best in the world. He doesn't have to go par 5s and 2. Although I think the research does show that going for par 5s, you have lower scores.
Yeah, but also a lot of that is dependent on how far they hit it.
Correct. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you got a guy like Bubba Watson, I mean, he's playing, as a par 4, somebody like Brian Gay, I mean, he just can't get there.
Correct.
He physically can't get
I had a guy who's now playing on the web.com tour. He was a 5'5" kid from Mexico, and Bobby Diaz from Myrtle Beach. If anybody knows Bobby, love Bobby to death. And Bobby and I, first time out, he was trying to hit 3-wood into every par 5 because he felt like he had a distance disadvantage, and the only way he could score was to beat him on the par 5s. Bobby could hit it through I mean, you tell him that pain of that wood right there, he's going to hit it through it. I'm like, why are you hitting 3-woods? You're max. We changed the strategy, and he now lives his strategy. Hey, look, he's not going to win a tournament that's 8,200 yards. That's wide open. So he just knows the tournaments he can play in and just dominate them very well. Yes? Nick.
What are some of the cliches surrounding the mental game of golf that you are not a big fan of? Or maybe an example? Or you hear it all the time, that golf's all mental.
No, I mean, everything's all mental. Okay, driving is mental, right? I mean, think about when we started driving. Where did you look? You looked just over the hood to make sure you didn't hit anybody and kill anybody. And anybody passed you on the road, you kind of, you murmur over, oh God, don't come. Okay? Now you drive, you look 2 seconds down the road and you're much faster. Everything is mental. So the cliches,
Muscle memory.
yeah, I mean, to me it's learning. Yeah. Slow down, calm it out, breathe it out. To me, those are people who've never been in high-intensity positions. The last thing I wanted to hear when I was pitching, when I was on an opposing team and they were playing pump-up music, was to calm down. I mean, I want to engage it. So it's called, to me, it's retraction action. When we get under stress, we retract. I want you to take action. Don't retract. Other cliches, do you have any in mind? Ask if I believe in.
Well, I just hear that golf is such a unique game, and maybe because the ball isn't moving, that the mind game is so much more important in golf than in other sports, and I'm just not so sure.
No, I think all sports and all actions that we do, whether it's a surgeon cutting on somebody's leg. One of the fellows told me about Dr. Andrews, and I said, how is he in surgery? And the attending walked over and said, man, these guys are so scared to call him if something goes wrong. Oh, don't call Doc, don't call Doc. Now, they got some of the best surgeons at Andrews, okay? He's trained the best surgeons. So, they'll say, don't call him, don't call him. And like, they'll have a bleeder in the knee or something, a blood vessel won't take. They're like, don't call him, we'll fix it. They call in Dr. Andrews, he's like, oh, okay, hey guys, ties it up, okay, we're done. Doesn't ever raise his voice. He's got it, he's been through it a ton. Then he walks into the kitchen, and if they don't have sliced tomatoes, he loses it, okay? In his element, it's all mental. Why? He's been there, right? He knows the game. He knows the percentages. So I think everything we do is mental. It's about engaging our mind to be successful for us. Now, I think golf is the only sport that we work more time on a move away from a ball than a move through the ball. As a pitcher, we work on the windup, but we really work on the explosion towards the target. So that to me is hard. And I think we have tried to perfect moves as opposed to perfect play. And this is the same problem that pitchers went through when I was pitching. Pitching coaches wanted everybody to throw the same way because if I threw across my body, that was bad for my shoulder. Yeah, but maybe my physiology allowed that to happen. And if I moved it, maybe I was going to cause some other problems. It's almost like take what you got and maximize that. Don't change them. Evolve them. And I think that's maybe a bigger one. But all games are mental, I think.
One of the things I struggle with is that if I'm playing a tournament that's like a qualifier, and I from past history, I know that in order to qualify, I got to shoot 75.
Mm-hmm.
And that score is on my mind. And how would you go about getting that out of your mind, or at least?
So qualifiers are tough because usually they're a shootout, and they're an 18-hole shootout, and guys that are qualifying on Mondays are tough because it's hard to tell them to play conservative. But the truth of the matter is most people who don't make it look back and go, God, if I would have just played my game, I would have been fine. So what happens is it's an artificial number. How long did it take for Roger Bannister to break the 4-minute mile? I mean, nobody ever thought it was feasible. Then after he broke it, everybody does it. Now 4-minute mile, you don't run in college unless you're on a 4-minute mile. Those are artificial barriers, in my mind. They're artificial numbers. It's kind of like when somebody says this is an easy hole, it's a birdie hole. All holes are birdie holes if you play it right. If you play your strategy, they're all birdie holes. They can all be birdie. So they're artificial, and when we're playing artificial, we're losing our process and our strategy. So one of the reasons why I love Nick Saban as a coach of football at LSU, or Alabama, that's Freudian slip, I wish he was at LSU still, is that he doesn't matter who he's playing, his whole mentality is make them quit. Whether he's playing Appalachia State or he's playing Auburn normally, he's just going to beat them every night, and they don't change their process. And I think as golfers, we have to go out there and run our game. I don't want my airline pilot to fly better because there's kids on the flight than when I'm on the flight. I want them to be fully locked in each and every time. So how do you do it? Say, look, if I play my game and this is my strategy, I'm going to play every shot backwards in my mind. I want to choose what I want to hit into these greens. I want to know where I'm going. I want to play middle left, 8-iron and lower. I want to go more aggressive. 8-iron and higher, I'm going to go to center of greens. Let's run the numbers and see what happens. Yes, Stephen.
Sorry.
I got to talk to my director of golf real quick.
Just in regards to that part about going out there and playing your game, just remember talking to Steve Lowry, who's a member of our club and plays now in the Champions Tour. But in regards to his approach to playing professionally each week. He said really the name of the game for him was just going to go out there and I'm going to try to make as many birdies as I can every single week. I know that's not going to happen all the time, but if I go out there just trying to be level good all the time, he says, I won't win anything.
Yeah.
He said, so I may as well just push as hard as I can, make as many birdies as I can,
And am I willing to accept it?
yeah.
Absolutely. And you got to be willing to accept the good as well as the bad. You know, if we're willing to accept that 62, we got to be willing to accept the 80. Doesn't mean we're happy with each. I don't mean being content. Great athletes are never content with anything. Okay? And hopefully you're not content in your teaching, because if you're content, you stop learning. So hopefully you're always pushing. But you know, it's the same thing with baseball, right? You know, I have the number 9 hitter up. Is a 220 hitter, can't hit it out of the infield. If I said, well, just don't let that guy beat me. How about strike him out? I mean, go after them. They're already vulnerable. And be on the attack and the aggressive side, you're always better. Yes, you had a question.
Yeah, I think as players, you know, you probably wouldn't want to admit it, but I think every player has a comfort level with who they think they are score-wise. And when they're outside that, and I'm like, for instance, for me professionally, if I was 3 over or more, I was pissed and frustrated, but if I was 6 under or better, I couldn't wait to post it.
Yeah.
So my backers could see, and I was going to make the cut, and I was going to make money. I'm wondering, it's interesting that in this sport, which I didn't experience in other sports I played, it was like, you could be 6 or 7 under, having not the best day of your life, but an extremely good day, and it's like you're wondering when the bottom's going to drop out. Whereas, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
there's a part where in this sport you're doing great, but you're still finding a way to sabotage yourself.
So what you're trying to do is predict the future, and guess what? You suck at it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we all try to predict the future. Golfers are the only sport I know who are waiting for impending doom to happen. I've never been with a baseball player. Now, baseball players are superstitious. If they're on a hitting streak, they don't change their socks.
Right.
They do all the same stuff. I mean, you know, they eat the same place. They do all that. And superstition, I mean, it is what it is. So I'm fine with superstition.
I got the lucky quarters.
Yeah, but I've never heard a baseball player going, oh, I'm getting to the park today. It's going to end eventually. So now all of a sudden you're retracting. The baseball players on the hot streak's like, we're going to go a little harder. We're going to push the hot streak, and we're willing to accept it. But the ball's slowing down. They're staying more prospective as opposed to fearful. And I tell my players all the time, you suck at predicting the future, so stop it. You're trying to misread it. You're misreading everything. You're trying to find, you know, I'm pulling it today. You're not going to pull it tomorrow. And so what I try to do to help that is, to me, practice goes through 3 phases. Okay. Warm up. So let's use full swing for a minute. All right, so player gets to the range, and this is what I see. Player gets to the range, they take out their lob wedge, their sand wedge, their 8-iron, their driver, their hybrid, or they take out their whole bag, and they start hitting. They start hitting shots, they're talking to their buddies, whatever, they're getting loose, they're stretching. Then all of a sudden, one doesn't come off right. Okay? They may be 4 balls in. Now all of a sudden, they're looking at ball flight. Okay? Then they start tinkering with their swing. Now that swing moves into other shots. And they're out there, first of all, they've never even got loose. Now they're tinkering with their technique, trying to find it. And no athlete ever in their right mind would ever stick around on leave a golf course or leave a range or a free throw shooting experiment leaving in a cold streak. So now they're going to stay out there long enough and find what's working and band-aid it. That's the normal athlete when they get to the golf course. They go out there, they hit it good, then they struggle, and they pull themselves out. Hey, it sounds like the learning strategy, right? Okay, so what I have players do is say, okay, you're going to go to the golf course and you're going to warm up. The warm-up has one purpose only. Get the blood moving in your body. Hit balls. Don't care where it goes. Now that's hard. Take out some 8-irons and hit, and what I literally tell them to do is hit it, look up, pull the next one over, and all your sole purpose is to see the ball go out there. I don't care where it goes. Duck hook 40 in a row. I don't care. Okay, there's a reason for that. Then I want them, after they're loose, the blood's moving, I don't care where the ball goes. Then we're going to move into foundations. I believe that every player has between 2 and 3 singly most important foundations in their swing for that player to be successful. And if you wonder what they are, ask the things that you always teach them when they come in for a swing session. They're the same 3 things. So when I come in, it's going to be ball alignment, it's going to be rhythm, or whatever it is. Okay? And tour players, it's going to be the same 2 or 3 things when their swing coach is with them all the time. Haley, what are yours?
Head left.
Head left.
Down.
And that's
pretty much
it.
Yeah.
So if she's worrying about club face, if somebody walks by the range and goes, today looks like your club face is staying open, you're on number 42 of those foundations. But players run to those and they forget the basics. So what I want them to do is not search for it. I want them to go out to practice and set up their foundation, their technical station 1 and 2 immediately. After they're loose, and we're going to set up head left. We're going to engage the mind to work on the one thing that's important, and that's their head. For her. She's going to hit 15 balls. If she's got a 3-hour range session to practice, it's going to be longer, more drills, and her coach, Matt Killen's going to give her more. Okay, she's going to work through those. Okay? If she's warming up before a round, it may be 10 balls. Then she's going to go to the second one. Now, she's done her technique. She may hit a few more focusing on technical. Now it's time to move to performance, which is full routine, hitting shots, not thinking about technique. It's time to trust it. But what happens is all of a sudden she starts hitting it horrendously. What does she do? She moves, comes back, takes a second, and goes back into her foundations. Foundations are not there for you to hit it perfect. It's there for you when you lose it to get it right back. When I pitched, we had 4 factors of success on the mound. First one, ball goes up and in, left shoulder flew open. So a pitcher throws, tries to overpower it, ball goes this way, shoulder goes this way, ball goes up and in. Second one, ball stays up in the zone on a breaking ball, you came off your backside too fast. Third one, ball bounces or goes low and away, you didn't reach out and extend because you're trying to work through it too fast. Okay? And we had to get out on the mound, and coach wouldn't pitch us until he saw us make those mistakes and we could self-correct. So what I want players to do is work their foundations. You guys as coaches is to give them more things to work in those foundations. And it simplifies everything. Performance, you start working shots, trying to randomize and create different targets. That's the way you do it. Putting, so putting, warm up, hit some putts. First thing to do is get on a, for some players, get on a chalk line and check alignment. And you're proactively doing it. That way they're not going, how does it look today? They know how it looks. The last thing I want a player to do in competition is go, was I aiming left? I mean, watching Mickelson yesterday lay down the thing about where he was aiming. Oh my. Okay, I want him to know that. And if it gets lost, he goes back to his foundations.
So you said when a player starts hitting it bad, maybe a performance, they go back to maybe that first.
They take a second,
foundation.
they take 5 balls, 10 balls, and they go work their foundations
What
again.
if they, then they go back to the performance, do they go first foundation, second foundation?
Yes.
They just go to one foundation?
They may have a key foundation that's important to
And
them.
they just go to
Yeah. Sometimes it's ball alignment. I mean, think about it. If a ball gets out of alignment with where they are in their stance, how many problems get started? May not happen right away, but it's coming. And it's so funny, they come in and like, well, your ball was out of alignment. Oh, it's got to be something more than that. No, it really wasn't. It was your ball alignment. And that helps you guys also being consistent. Nick?
A couple of years ago, Hunter Mahan in the Ryder Cup chunked a pretty important chip, and a lot of people said it was going to damage his career, it was going to hang over him forever. What do you think about that for an athlete in a big pressure moment? They have a breakdown. Will it necessarily live with them forever?
It could. I mean, so it depends. So it's kind of like traumatic events in the human mind. Some things have flashbulb memories. By the way, if you ever want to get somebody to think about something positive, get them to remember the smells they were having. The olfactory nerve is the most connected to the brain, and it goes to the hippocampus, which is in is the memory center of the brain. So that's why if you walk out and you go, what did it smell like? Oh, fresh cut grass. That's why when we smell food, we get hungry, because it's pulling in vast things very quickly. So it can, but think about Webb Simpson in the Ryder Cup, shanks a shot. Okay, Hunter Mahan shanks a sand wedge at the WGC Accenture a couple years ago and gets it up and down, makes par. Rory McIlroy shanks. You have to understand that I want a pilot that can fly in rough weather better than they can fly in clear weather. And in that, you're going to be put in the highest pressure situations. And what if I was working with Hunter? I don't, but if I was working with him, it would be, look, it happens. It's a percentage thing. Now let's focus on our foundations. But I want to talk to him. What's the real issue? Usually on players, like, there's an embarrassment that comes with it. And I want to get to the root of why they're embarrassed. Oh, I failed, I did whatever. Hey, it happened, okay? There's a lot of players that make errors. There's a lot of players that make mistakes. But with great responsibility comes great opportunity. Yeah.
Can I ask a real quick follow-up? If you were coaching a Ryder Cup player and it was the night before, they'd never done it, they just got all kinds of nerves, what kind of advice might you give them?
Well, it's kind of like me pitching in the World Series. You're not going to tell them not to be nervous, okay? Adrenaline and nerves are the exact same physiology in the body. It's the fight or flight response. The only difference is your appraisal of it. Let me show you how emotion works. Now, this is the Bhrett McCabe way. So, and at the top 100, I gave this talk, so if you were there, I apologize. Okay, that's the brain. Like, screwed up, but anyway, that's the brain. Okay. Yeah, that's your brain, Larry. Okay. Physiological reactions. Okay, this is the fight or flight response that players have. Okay, now fight or flight is, think about it. It's heart rate going up, mouth getting dry, your fingers actually secrete sweat, but that's why your hands feel cold. They're losing blood, but they're also secreting some sweat. You feel nauseous because all the blood's pooling in your inner. So the fight or flight response has been around for thousands of years, is to help you either fight the thing or run like hell. Okay, saber-tooth tiger jumps out at you. Okay, this is what we feel when we're in that situation. You're a night before a Ryder Cup. Do you want to be nervous? I mean, if you're not nervous, I'm a little worried. Okay? I mean, literally, I want my surgeon to be nervous before they go in to do an open heart surgery. Just a little bit. I want my pilot to be a little bit nervous every time they run down that runway. Okay, so you have a stimulus that happens out here. So this is the Ryder Cup. I'm the night before the Ryder Cup. That's just a random event. That's just out there. We perceive it. Perception. What impacts our perception? Memory. Tiger Woods, how many Ryder Cups has he been in? A lot. Think he's still nervous? Absolutely. But he's been there before, so he has positive memories, usually. History, confidence, all these things are leading into this. That perception happens very quickly. And it creates this physiological arousal. Here's the problem. When we get in trouble is when we appraise it. Okay? We have an appraisal. That leads to an emotion. So if I start the night before the Ryder Cup, I'm nervous, sick, don't want to eat, sweating, can't sleep, and I go, oh shit. What happens if I screw up on the first tee? That appraisal is now negative. What do you think the emotion is going to be? Fear. I'd rather them say, oh man, I'm getting pumped up, I'm excited, I'm nervous. How do you feel? I'm nervous. Why? Oh, it's a big deal. So try to talk them into actually engaging it and saying, it's not appraisal of fear, it's appraisal of excitement. Are we ready to go? Absolutely. Are we prepared? Absolutely. Colin Kaepernick said it best, stress is lack of preparation. Are you prepared? Absolutely. What are we prepared for? Now, how are you going to manage the hoopla? Maybe walk a little slower. And that's when I'm going to meet with the caddy and say, look, and I do meet with caddies. Okay, how do you communicate? They're jacked up, they're probably not going to eat or drink. Okay, they can't get anything down on them. They're so excited. Football players puke before games. Just what it is. Because this gets rolling. I want them to not be freaked out about it. So I try to train my players. And in fact, I do a drill, Haley's done it, where we get heart rate up before they putt. So I used to do CrossFit. I'm a past CrossFitter, as you can tell. But I love what CrossFit does is it gets heart rate up fast. And you can create something that can get heart rate up fast. But what I would do is do things where this is a great drill for your juniors. It's fantastic. It's hard to get pros to do it because they're like, I'm not going to do it. What I do is, okay, so you and I are going to pair up. I've got a 10-foot putt. So I'm going to set up 8 stations on the green. And I'm going to set up in pairs of 2. And I'm going to set up putts from 10 feet, chips, sand shots, tight shots, whatever. And you and I are going to go. So we have our station is a 10-footer. So I'm going to set a ball down, and I'm going to go first. And I'm going to do a 1-minute exercise where I'm going to get a kettlebell, and we're going to do kettlebell swings. I'm going to get the heart rate, and I'm going to stand there as a coach as they're all going. Haley's done it, and we're going to be yelling, go, faster, faster. I want their heart rate up. And then at the minute, we say, stop. You have 15 seconds to make the putt starting now. And they walk in, and every player does this. Walks in, and they go, okay, practice, practice, okay. Because the deal is, if you make the putt, you automatically win. And if he makes the putt, there's no losers by making. I mean, come on. We're not going to punish anybody for making. If one person makes it, the other guy loses, the guy loses. If both miss, it's whoever's closer to the hole wins. The guy who loses has to repeat the exercise for another minute afterwards. So I walk in and I hit it. And this is what kids do. They walk in and they go, okay, pre-shot routine, okay, go. And then I go, 5 seconds, oh God, hit it. And they miss it every time. You've done it. It's hard, isn't it? Okay, that's the first station. Okay, now Wayne goes. Now he goes, I'm over there, whew, now I lose. Okay, he's like, okay, you're up. We go for another minute. Now we say rotate, we go to the next station. Wayne won. He gets to choose if he goes first or I go first on the next station. We go. If he's smart, he makes me go. Now I go again. Now my heart rate is flying. And we go through it. Well, here's what happens. This right here sets people off to be scared. They get very timid. Why are they doing their pre-shot routine? Because they're trying to calm themselves down. And they forget to breathe. What I tell players to do is when you walk out of the exercise, take 3 deep breaths. Calm your heart rate down. Under appraisal, you switched it from fear-based to more about aggressiveness. Step into it, and players start making more putts. If any of you teach juniors, it is a fantastic, you can do it with push-ups, you can do anything like that. With chips, I make them do things that get their forearms tired. You know, like rolling stuff, and then they have to go hit chips. And it's teaching them how to get their arousal down. So for that Ryder Cup player, I want their arousal down.
Well, kind of going back to the foundations, what if you're working on something new in your golf?
Okay, so they're going to introduce a new foundation. Okay, and so on the week of tournaments, okay, so Monday out at a tour event for me, you're going to have more fundamentals, more foundations, less performance. But as we're getting closer, it's more performance, but you know, maybe 20-80. But if they're working something new, we might do more 50-50. And just accept the fact we're working on something new. But that's usually the third foundation, unless it's a redo. Okay? Yes, in the back.
To encapsulate what you're saying is my dad used to say, everybody has butterflies. Teach them to fly in formation.
And embrace them.
Embrace them.
Absolutely.
Embrace them.
Embrace them. So there's the Yerkes-Dodson law, which is one of the most famous laws in the history of psychology, is another bell curve. Over here is too low. Over here is too high. Okay, so if I'm a California kid, I'm like, yo dude, what's up? I don't really want to be out here. I don't have any arousal. Physiologically, my focus isn't as good. I'm distracted, all that. I'm over here. The too high is I'm puking, and I can't calm it down. I want to get them, and what I have them do is I'll have players say, for every player, Haley's probably like, we've never done that, because she doesn't need this, is that some players will come in, I'll have them rated on a scale of 10. Where do you want to be? I want to be between a 6 and a 7. I've had players who struggle in the 3 to 4s. Small field event, not really doing well, don't want to be here, tired, 4th event in 5 weeks, that type of stuff.
What you're talking about is Cellier's use stress.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So use stress is the Cellier, which is a lot of my research in grad school was on stress with health conditions, is that stress is essentially a bridge over a cavern. We all can manage stress. And it's not the big stressors, it's the little stressors that happen each and every day in our lives. And this is why it's important for you guys to know your charter and how to deal with your players. They come to the course with little stresses. And so how much load can that bridge take crossing the cavern? Well, we'll never be without stress. Okay? It's the ability to take certain things and get us to focus. A boss that comes down on us says, where are your numbers? Guess what? All of a sudden your productivity will go up. People will tell you they don't like structure. And they tell you all they want is positive reinforcement. I hear that all the time from players. I just want our coach to tell us that they like us and we're doing good. Okay, kids, players, athletes are like dogs. They're only happy under structured environments. Dogs flourish when they're structured. When they're not structured, they run around, they're miserable. They pee all over the house, they're miserable. But when they're structured, they know who's the boss. Players are the same way. They function best in structure, and it helps manage all that other stress to make it positive. Yeah, let me take Haley.
Well, okay, you know, bear with me with putting the thoughts together. So I've kind of learned, 1 year on tour, like kind of learning, everyone tells you learn what you do, learn what works for you all is. So I'm kind of learning, like with my morning routine and just going through Q school and stuff, like I always felt those nerves basically in my route to a tournament, like in the tournament, in the car. Not in the morning, not when I'm eating breakfast, none of that, because I have my routine, I have what I do, I get up, I do, you know, have what I do. But it was always that in between, but I could not wait to get to the course because I knew exactly what I was going to do, where I was going to go, and I knew exactly how long I knew I was going to go on the range. That's what, when I finally got to that chipping ground, it's like comfortable. So I'm kind of learning throughout this, my routine works best when I'm staying about 30 minutes away from the golf course, which some people think is crazy and some people want to be right next to it. But I'm kind of learning, like that's kind of,
it gives you a chance to kind of work through.
Yeah, it kind of, when I stayed a little bit closer, I maybe rush in the morning, or when I got in that car, I'd still have those kind of like, I'm not there yet, but the 30 minutes, it kind of rides its course and then it takes, kind of like, I don't know, it kind of.
And what you've done is you've taken control.
Yeah, so.
People want control, and where they get lost is when they lose control or they perceive they've lost control. And so what I always try to do is give them something to be in control of. That's what happens at a riptide. You feel like you've lost control. Find something to take control of. You took control of dealing with your schedule to manage your nerves.
Right.
And it's your control. You know when you get there, it's predictable. Control is predictability.
So I didn't know if that had to do with structure. That's kind of, I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm just not realizing it. But
Yeah, that's why. The structure's great. One thing to think about too is the human mind strives for three things, very clearly. Human mind strive, there's three strives. This is, once again, a world according to Bhrett. So the first one, we all strive to be accomplished. We want to accomplish something. Or we want to be successful in what we do. We all want to accomplish. Now, it doesn't mean we all want to be number one in the world, but some of us are trying to accomplish something. If we don't strive for accomplishment, we fail to prosper. The mind is never content. It can't be content because it has to move. It has to be striving for more. So, accomplishment. Second one, social acceptability. We want to be accepted by our peers. Our players' social groups are important. That's why when you're on the fairway and you're like, I'm 7 under, I can't wait to post this. I want everybody to tell me how good I did. Yeah, you want social acceptability. You want your sponsors to be happy for you. The third one is stability. And we have to be comfortable in ambiguity to create that stability. And that's the important thing. So those, if you remember those three, where we get in trouble is where we use accomplishment to fulfill social acceptability. Like, if I make a lot of money, people are going to like me. Think about Alex Rodriguez. I mean, he uses his accomplishment. He's one of the most insecure human beings you'll ever meet. Yes?
Can you go back in, earlier you was talking about failure drills?
Yeah.
What type of failure drills do you, especially as it relates to golf? Because as you said, I mean, golf and baseball is pretty much a failure sport.
Sure.
How do you go about implementing that without breaking them down?
Don't be afraid to break them down. Just be able to pick them back up when you do. Okay? So first thing, don't remember, you're not trying to crush them, but you want them to be a little upset, but don't try to get them to not feel upset. So it's kind of like when our kids get upset. It's like you got to let them be a little mad, as, you know, as our kids, or be a little sad sometimes, but they'll figure it out. So in a failure drill, I don't want you to be over there like picking them up or, you know, the last thing of the day. I'll never forget this. I was doing a corporate talk when I worked for Bristol Myers, and we had a lady come in, and it was absolutely awful. Corporate motivation. I mean, awful. And we had to go around the room with our teammates and put red dots by attributes that we felt that that person was weak in. So I'd walk up to yours, I'd be like, right there, and do this. And then we were supposed to go around afterwards and put yellow dots by what we thought people were good at. Well, we ran out of time, and we all had to catch flight, so all we ever got was the negative one. Okay, we were crushed. We had to do a debrief as our team and going, everyone thought I was outspoken and arrogant. Okay, well, this is right. Okay, so failure drills. You have to create them. So it's kind of sometimes like the sandwich thing. Some days we're going to push them and let them fail, but at the end we're going to give them some mastery stuff to master. So for instance, one of the drills I love is something I call the butcher. It's a 5-foot putting drill, 8 stations around the hole, 3 balls each station. You have to go 24 in a row to make it. If you don't, you start over. It takes about an hour and a half to complete it the first time. I've got a college player who does it from 8 feet. He sees it as a challenge. I've had other players who refuse to do it. Not doing it, that thing's stupid. All I see are negative putts. You're choosing to see it. It's a grit test for me. If you're willing to sit on that green and work through it, you'll do it. Okay? You're not going to break your confidence. Give me a break. You're that weak. Stick through it. Other drills to do. Set them out there and, you know, 2 ball, worst ball, first 9, 2 ball, second, best ball, second 9. Stuff like that. Pair them against somebody one time that maybe they're not as good as. They got nothing to lose at that point. But you got to put them through failure. But just don't throw them the safety net. The safety net doesn't need to be right here. It can be right there. They can fall a little bit and then pull themselves back up. You just have to have a master plan. Just don't be sadistic.
I want to comment on that a little bit. I've had a lot of success with my junior players and going out and playing with them at times and letting them watch me hit a ball out of bounds. Like, I hit bad shots. I hit a ball in the water, and it's how I handle that I think is so important to them.
So that comes back to being authentic. One of the biggest breakthroughs with one of my tour players is when he and I were talking and I cried about something in my life. Now in therapy, it's always hard to talk about, being vulnerable. But being vulnerable is critical to be successful. And what you're showing is that you're vulnerable. See, all of our players are so afraid to be vulnerable to be successful. They set up barriers around them. Well, and it's what I call the fishbowl. Okay? The human mind is no different than a goldfish. It only grows to the size of the bowl it's placed in. The goldfish in a small bowl will grow that big. Put it in a bigger one, it'll grow bigger, and you put it in a backyard pond at a Japanese restaurant, it's a koi fish. Same species. Okay? If they're looking at you and you've got it all together and you never make a mistake, then they see perfection as the only ideal. I want to break the fishbowl. And don't be restricted by what you're in. So as a coach, you need to be authentic and show them some vulnerability. And they have to be vulnerable. In order to win, you must fail. You have to be willing to fail to be successful. That's vulnerability. Yes, I don't want a player to ever go back to Q school. Sometimes it's the best thing that ever happens to them. Yeah.
This is a question that it bounces off both the failure, letting them fail, but I want to get back to Rich's question. Because you change your routine when you go back into your foundations, but everybody knows this, and like if you teach junior players and the high school coaches, not you, or situations like that where you've changed your foundations, they're going to concentrate a little bit more on their foundations. How do you keep them to stick with those foundations knowing that their funnel's going to move to the left?
I have them send practice schedules a week in advance.
Okay.
I mean, if they can't do it, it's not my fault. I hate to say that. We're going to develop, now don't make it 42 lengths long,
right?
But this is what we're going to do. And you get them to get commitment, and you show them if you do it, it's going to work.
So they have to be committed, but do you warn them about the people that are going to be in their ear saying,
sure,
that guy just screwed you up because you're playing a lot worse. Why don't you go back to what you did?
Yeah.
And that's the worst advice.
You don't think they have them on tour?
I know.
There's tour coaches that are poachers out there. There's psychologists. One of the worst things I ever had, one of the things that made cliche, never made me madder. When another psychologist on tour went to one of my coaches and said, "Man, listen, what he's doing with Bhrett, I don't really like. I'd like to take him on." Oh my God. Lost all respect for that guy. Done. And it was because they don't know what we're doing. Okay? I mean, so you have to get them to trust. Now, how long do you trust? You as a coach got to be 2 steps ahead. You got to be going, stick with it, but you can't be stubborn and go, my way's the only way. Sometimes you need to, but you got to tell them, look, there's going to be a lot of doubters. Doubt's going to come in. Under doubt, expectations go up. Okay? Expectations are terrible. They're entitlements. We don't like entitlements. They're terrible. So think about this. When you start listening to players, be very careful of their expectations. Under fear and doubt, expectations go up. We're going to get rid of that. Today I thought I was going to play good. I should have played good. I had a good week of practice. All those should statements, 3 very, very negative words you'll ever hear. Should, must, and need. Don't should on yourself. I'm not going to tell you the must one, but you can figure it out. And need is terrible. I am, I will, and I can. I do, and I want. Those are the words I like to hear. So players get caught up. They make mistakes. Their expectations go up. I thought I was going to play good. Why? I was hoping I was going to play good. I had a great week of practice. All a great week of practice did is got you in a good position. You still had to go out and do it. So I want to have high demands. Those are behaviors. My demand is I'm going to approach each and every shot with no fear of the consequences. I'm going to be committed to every shot I hit, and I'm going to grind through this today.
Simply stated, you said.
What's that?
Simply stated, you're going not be focused on the result, but be focused on the effort to the result.
Exactly.
Is that as simple
I
as
can't
it is?
dictate the result. I can do everything right, and the result can't happen. I hate it when somebody says, I'm going to win this tournament. Really? There's 162 other players that think they're going to win it too. I want you to put yourself in position to win it. I mean, you can't help it if somebody shoots 59 on the last day. Can't play defense. Was there another question? Yeah.
Yeah.
Marco.
All right. So I come from the fitness side of the world of golf, and the brain is a muscle. So you train it. You have actually one at your facility, the thing that you put around your head,
focus band.
the focus band, to try and incorporate training the brain to be stronger. So how do you see incorporating some of this mental training into the physical side?
Physical is where you do it. Oh, I love physical training. I mean, not personally me, but I love it for my athletes. The reason for it is you train failures all the time. They try to, you're building them up, they go for it, they can't get it. What do? You keep building
right,
up.
Because you hear like athletes on tour and stuff, they say they're more confident because they know
I put in the effort.
Right thing.
So I love the book Lone Survivor. To me, it is a must-read for all my professional athletes. Go see the movie, but please read the book because it talks in depth about the Navy SEALs training. They break them down.
Lone Survivor.
Lone Survivor, Marcus Luttrell, phenomenal book. Here's the thing that, hey guys, what's up? You doing good? Thanks for coming. So here's the thing that is so tough about the Navy SEAL training. They don't train them for perfect days. They train them for what they don't know. And they trust they have a toolbox in place. The great saying is, all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail. I want to train my players to, in any circumstance, they can maneuver their way through it. And how do you do that? Well, in the book Lone Survivor, he talks about the admiral who comes in during Hell Week and says, and they call their missions or their training sessions evolutions. He said, those of you who will fail will be more caught up on the next evolution as opposed to the current one. Remember, you suck at predicting the future. Thanks. Focus on, we all do. Focus on what you do well and survive this one. And I'll tell you what I do. I work for the Alabama basketball team. And they're struggling this year, but they'll be all right. But they made a change in their weight coach this year. And we incorporated failure drills. And what we did was we incorporated some of the things that they're doing with their coaches and all that other stuff, is to train them for when they, to keep pushing themselves to work through the adversity. And you've got to do it physically. Because there's that point of, I'm going to puke, I can't do this. And all of a sudden you break through and realize you did it. All of a sudden, there's the neurochemical change. The learning takes place, the dopamine takes place, it's a reward, you're pumped. But then the real athlete goes, I want more.
So it's kind of like being in that fog.
Yeah.
And they figure out.
Yeah. You've seen that in physical training. They go, then they plateau. And the people get so frustrated. But all you're doing is fully reinforcing their foundations.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, what do? Boom, there they go again, if they stick with it. Other questions?
Right.
Rick. Oh yeah, back here. I'll go over here.
How important is the pre-shot routine?
It's important. To me, routine means normal. So I use a pre-shot routine to make it normal. I don't use it to calm people down. I think that's a myth I can't stand. Use a pre-shot routine to calm yourself down. I hate that. Use a pre-shot routine to make it feel normal. So during, there are certain things I want to do. I love Vision 54 think box, play box. What I have players do is when they step behind the ball, when their belt buckle squares to the target, they're now in their execution phase. I want them to be fully locked in, and I use the tool, the focus band, which I love. It shows different brain waves, so back to what you're talking about. And so it's about getting them in the right frame of mind. The funnel, right? Think about it, pre-shot routine. The beginning of it, you're still wide open. You're moving into a strategy. At the end of your pre-shot routine, now you're into execution. So it's a rhythm thing. Yeah, hold on.
Bhrett, can you speak how you work with players' goals and having them set them and kind of work through their progress?
Okay, that's another myth I hate, goals. Okay. Most players set goals backwards. They set goals, they don't really know what they want. I have them start and say, tell me your charter for the year, your passion for the year. I've done this with Haley. Tell me what you truly want. And I'll be honest with you, and I'm going to pick on her, it changed with her in that conversation. I don't know if you know that. You don't. I'll tell you about it afterwards. But what's happening is she had goals. She is a driven person. She had goals, but it wasn't relating to her true purpose and what was truly in her heart, what she was living for, I think it's probably fair to say. Okay? Once we got that, then from that we go to what I call the wants. Put it on paper. What do you want in life? I want to buy a new house this year. I want to do this. I want to teach 40 new players. All this. Tell me what you want. There's no filter. Only you're going to see it with me. Then after that, we start moving into sub-goals and then action plans. Goals, people put goals up and then they never do them. It's because they're not truly related to what is in core nature of themselves. So when somebody says, I want to make it on the tour, it's like, do you really? Do you really? Because, you know, what is your true passion in life? What gets you out of bed every single morning? So when I ask a player, they say, what, you know, I want goals. What do you really want? What do you really want? Don't give me goals. I want to hit more fairways. What do you really want? Because if it's truly what you're willing to want, you'll sacrifice a lot for it in life. And without sacrifice, doesn't come success. So what are you willing to sacrifice to be successful? When it lines up to that system, then we're there. There was over here. Yes, right here.
Back to pre-shot routine.
Yeah.
Do you like, I like to change up the routine every so often because I feel like if it becomes routine,
Okay.
then that's when mistakes happen.
That's fine.
And then their mind changes. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to see putters take practice strokes next to the ball because 90% of the time they're in a technical thought. And then they step over a ball and now they're trying to re-engage the performance side. I'd rather them take if they're going to take a practice, I don't think you need to take a practice stroke. I mean, Nick, I'm going to throw this to you real quick, okay? See, I've still got it. Okay, now throw it back to me. Okay? Okay. Did you think about how you're going to throw it? You just threw it. Four swing thoughts. Yeah, you screwed up. Okay.
That's Nick, though. He's always.
I know. I read his stuff. Okay. So, all right. So, the human physiology is about picking a ball and letting it ride. Okay. If I picked up a rock 100,000 years ago, and there was a rabbit, and I had to think about how to throw the rock, I'm screwed. I picked it up and threw it, hit it, my genes continued. Never once did my brain think of arm angle, velocity, arc, target. I just picked a target, threw my brain calculated it all. When I see a player take this and then go, 90% of the time, the only one that was different was Graham. When I was at Graham, what he did, he takes his practice strokes next to it. He's still using the same putting routine we created at the Atlanta Athletic Club. Is he would sit there and he'd take his strokes and he'd go, made that one, and now I'm making 3 in a row. That's why he does it. He's not thinking about stroke. So if you want to take a stroke putting, do it behind the ball. I like it face on, but if you're going to do it sideways, that's fine. The only people I don't mind doing it is if they're truly in seeing the ball go in the hole in their mind. The other one that gets me is like chipping. Players, they take their full shot behind the ball and then they step in, their full swing. Chipping, they sit up there, they chip, and then they step in. Oops, they were just thinking technical. Take your pre-shots, step away, visualize the shot, and then step back in.
Line or no line on the ball?
Depends on the player. If you're setting it up and going this.
You wouldn't do any other thing as strategic, you know, like athletic-wise, like you, I mean, the seams of the ball would be for curve and stuff like that.
Well, I grip the baseball the same way every time. We practice with our third baseman and stuff to how to pick the ball out as fast as possible and get the seams right. But there's a reason for that.
Right.
Line, so if you're doing this and you look down to it and all of a sudden it becomes an anxiety of, am I lined up right?
Right.
We're going to roll that. I took one of her male teammates at Ole Miss. He had just come from a putting coach that was really big on, had to be with a line and all. And we did it, and he from 3 feet, I mean, and this kid was a talented player. He couldn't get the putter's not lined up right. He was. If God wanted you to align from here, he would put an eyeball right there. Okay, so you're looking down, okay? So he's doing this, okay? And so what I did is I covered up the line and the stroke part. He couldn't hit the ball. I mean, he couldn't hit the hole from 3 feet. I mean, width.
Right.
Okay, took the line away off the took the tape off the putter with no line on the ball, and he was brilliant. Covered back up the line, and then put the line on the ball, couldn't hit it again. You just got to trial and error and see what they like. Have them talk to you. Some players I like short putts. I mean, it's just all trial and error. See, there's no absolutes in golf.
Right.
And there's no absolutes in personality in life. So you got to be willing to talk to them and find out what's important to them. Yes, back there.
Interesting foundation that I keep hearing you go back to. Warren Buffett, in one of his books, they quote that every year he would have a big conference out in Southern California. And he would invite the captains of industry and the best athletes he could get. And during the day, they could all go parasailing or play golf or lay on the beach, but at night they had conferences. And sometimes it would be lectures from some of the people who were there. But this one night they decided that the topic was, is what one word best describes why you have been successful. And you've used this word multiple times today. And perseverance came out, education came out, genetics came out. None of those were the words. And finally, after about 3 hours, there was a unanimous decision as to what that word was. And to give you a hint of what it was, let's say that you were sitting in the back room, on the lawn, 85 degrees, no clouds in the sky. Your dad comes by, and he throws down a little piece of tissue paper and a magnifying glass, and he says, let's see you get that piece of paper on fire. What would you have to do? That's the word, and you've used it multiple times.
Yeah.
That is the secret of their success, is how they can focus it down.
Yep, and so I very good friend of mine that I used to work with at Bristol Myers was one of the best psychologists I ever worked with. Real Buddhist type of guy. Went through some, just just a wonderful guy. And he called me 2 years out of the blue. We started talking the other day, and he said, it's a Buddhist thing. In life, we can peel it all away, and it comes down to two things. Either what I'm doing is not I'm not comfortable doing what I'm doing, or what I'm doing is not equaling what I want. It's one of those two things. And then it boils down to one more. Are you comfortable in the now? Are you comfortable right now? And so it comes down to me, if you truly are doing what you want, it's easy to focus. If you're struggling with focus, more than likely you're not doing what you want. And that, I think, is what's important, is when we're talking to athletes, they're trying to do things, we're trying to get them to do something. Ask them why not. Ask them why not. Why are we struggling? Talk to them.